So right now we're getting what's called a baseline reading. I'll let that sit for a minute and gather up some data, but right now it's super low. That's the same as on my desk, radiation levels. So we're at 16, 17, 18. So the levels are super low, and I just wanted to get a baseline reading going up the reactor road. The story about this place is just after they dropped the atomic bomb that was developed during World War II to stop the Japanese, the research and the testing was done in Alamogordo, New Mexico. A company called Curtiss-Wright was given a contract to build a nuclear-powered jet engine. And so Curtiss-Wright Corporation in 1957, they bought 80 square miles of land right here, this stuff. And they developed a technology called an open pool nuclear reactor, which is just down this road. So we're going in today just to look at what's left of that place and take a couple Geiger counter readings and maybe some drone flights.
This used to be a secret government nuclear research facility. After this place was abandoned in 1967, a survey found licensable quantities of strontium-90 that had stayed behind as structural contamination, as well as other contaminants like cobalt-60 were also known to be here. The question in my mind was, would I find any radiation here, or should I worry more about the numerous rattlesnakes known to infest this place? So today, we're going in to see what we find. I brought a Geiger counter to see if there's any residual radiation here. This area is not only infested with rattlesnakes, but because of radiation hotspots, it is designated by the government as an enter-at-your-own-risk area. In the 1950s, inside this vast wilderness area, the U.S. government was trying to develop the world's first nuclear-powered aircraft. So they built a nuclear reactor out here and began testing. I found government reports stating that radioactive materials were dumped randomly in this area near Mosquito Creek. And by 1967, authorities said that this place, the Quahana site, could never completely be cleaned up. This wilderness is vast, originally covering more than 80 square miles. In the long run, the project failed. No one was able to develop such a nuclear-powered jet machine.
So we're coming down to the field where the actual reactor site is, just over here. And at this point, the levels on this thing are super low. But here's the reactor sign coming up. So I think what they do, they dig this trench around it. And then that contains what was in that field. I hiked about a mile or two in to this sign that seems to indicate that field was where the reactor was. And there's a couple of structures still here. Right now the ambient radiation levels are not much higher than you find in western New York. So, well, we're at 20. That is higher than I've ever seen. But not much. There is a structure up in front of us that may be an old concrete pad or something. And we're coming up on a pile of rubble. Well, not much going on here either. Let's go across and into the field. Kind of rocky. Oh yeah, but it's kind of easier to walk in there, I think. Yeah. Huh? Deer tracks.
Put it right here.
Oh, this. Let's see what we got. Nothing. I mean, it's lower than my desk. Right now it's reading 0.12. And you can go to 0.99 and still be safe. So this is the actual field. Ugh. Let's go to the left. I'll just watch out for chuck holes. Somewhere, probably on that flat, is where the actual gizmo was. Let's see if we get any increased readings. Let's see. Let me put it down here. Yeah, 13, 14, 15. So that's actually pretty low. Yeah. So basically, the idea of radiation, it's sort of like a radiant heater you have, like your Mr. Heater Buddy for your cabin. The further you are away, the less you feel it, the less you're being exposed. So there isn't much for a highly energetic source here. And let's you and I head back to the road.
So, after a couple hours of poking around in the actual reactor site, we headed a few miles northeast to the North Engine Test Cell area.
All right, so this time we're going into the North Test Bunker site in the middle of nowhere. And it's kind of sketchy getting through here, carrying my drone and my coffee at the same time. This is the road in. So supposedly this one is only like a half mile in to the woods.
So we walked and walked and walked, all the whole time watching for rattlesnakes and an occasional radioactive nuclide. We finally got to a clearing.
After not too far of a walk, over there is the first bunker at the North Test Site. And this is where they would have strapped the experimental nuclear engines to concrete pads and blasted them. And the bunkers are designed to keep you from getting blown up. And these things are built to withstand explosions, of course. What's over there? Yeah, so the pond that you're looking at is where the thrusters would blast into the water so that it didn't start the ground on fire. And this is one of the engine mounts. That pond is to help absorb the heat from the engine thruster test.
This spot is located about 2 miles away from the reactor and was known as the North Engine Test Cell area. And this is actually one of 2 separate testing locations. The layout is simple. First is a test bunker with walls several feet thick to protect from blasts and possible radiation. Then, in front of the bunker are concrete engine mounts that the nuclear engines could be strapped to, turned on, and test fired. A concrete strip led down to a water holding pond that is about 50 to 100 yards away from the engine stand. These ponds held cooling water for the engine itself, and the ponds also offered a place for the blast from the engine to hit. It is not abundantly clear if any engines were ever tested here. Again, we tested for radiation, but did not find much anywhere we looked. And with that, we packed up and headed for home.
Yeah, so this is us heading out. I'll get behind you.
Got everything?
Yeah. So I headed back down this road about a half mile. Beautiful day. It's supposed to rain, supposed to come in a little later. And that's that for our Quetzalcoatl bunker site.
This place is beautiful, but it still has the risk of radioactive contamination associated with it. Other documentation I found told of accounts of workers illegally burying hundreds of drums of unknown waste from the reactor facility in a trench 125 feet by 25 feet wide for waste drums that were buried off of the Wyckoff Run Road. And I find that very unsettling. And for today, we had fun. We explored around, hopefully didn't get any strontium on our shoes, and got a chance to check out this very remote and beautiful area. Perhaps with ever-improving UAV drone technology and airborne radiation detectors for aerial mapping, we can get a better idea of what was left behind in this area. But that takes money, and government officials may not be exactly eager to go out and spend more money after surveying these sites with the existing technology from 20 years ago.